Something to announce. Yesterday we had the Baskets of Love, and we served 169 people yesterday. It was amazing. Yes, it was so wonderful. It was so wonderful. And if you were here, you saw all the faces and all the happiness that was bringing. And for those that weren't here to know, we got wiped out. Like there's nothing left. So this upcoming Baskets of Love, we will have to refill the storehouses for that. So just be looking at that and praying about what you can help with on that, and as we go forward to this month. So we'll move into the service here, the message here, and we're in a series called "How You Feeling?" And so, how are you feeling today? Right? And that's a good thing to hear. And so we're in week 4 of a 6-week series talking about our feelings. And it hasn't been an easy thing to talk about feelings, especially for us guys, right? We don't like talking about feelings, which maybe you're excited about. Maybe you're excited about talking about your feelings. It's okay. But today we're going to talk about the feeling of sadness, and which it's just funny because I'm the least sad person you probably know, right? And as I sit there, I'm like, all right, Lord. If you know him pretty well, he puts something on your plate that's a little different, and like I don't know how's this going to be good because I'm not really sad. How am I going to preach about sadness when I don't really understand sadness because I'm not sad? And so today I need to let you know that I was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to start prepping here, and I'm going to get ready for this message, and because here's the thing, if that's my reality, then I bet you've got something good for me to say. If I don't feel sadness, I'm sure he's going to have something good to tell me. And so here's what I did. I thought, I'm going to dig deep. I'm going to dig deep into me and look at myself and be self-aware. And I reached back, and we've been talking about vehicles of different emotions, right, in the last couple of weeks. And so today, I was looking back for the emotion of sadness, and I knew immediately where to go, what car to go to. And I reached way back, and it was California, 1994, way back when. And it was a 1989 black and silver two-tone Toyota Corolla GTS, twin cam, beautiful car. That's not my car. I just found the picture. It's not the two-tone I had. Mine was cooler than this one. And I'm just telling you, for those that didn't know, that car was fast. That car was really fast. And in California, the speed limit was 80 miles per hour on the highway. So I would grab every bit of the speed I could with that car. And you might be saying, wait, this is about sadness, right? Well, just hold on. Well, like most young males, the thrill of speed led me to do some dumb things, right? And like one night, I was determined to find out how fast this car would go, right? And the speedometer went to 180, so it had to go pretty fast. And I found a lonely straight as an arrow road back in the farm countries of Northern California, and decided that the time was right. It was nighttime. I could see where I was going. I reached the dangerous speed, I'm not condoning this at all, of 135. As I'm going 135, then there's this, okay, so in California, they like to grow stuff, right? They have a lot of farmland, but it's not natural farmland. So they have to irrigate the farmland. And so they have all these irrigation trenches, like running around these farmland areas. And when the road has to cross one of these trenches, well, it's a 10-foot raised mini bridge, right? And so I hit that bridge, and I was airborne for forever. And I just thought to myself, keep the wheel straight. Keep the wheel straight. Well, I wrecked that wonderfully fast car. No, not that night. That night, I landed perfectly and drove home the speed limit because I was scared to death of that speed. And no, I wrecked my car going 5 miles an hour in rush hour traffic. It was a fender bender, but my car was never the same. It had engine issues, the hood latch was broken and didn't work properly. I even had the hood pop up on me once and slam into the windshield while I was going 80 on that highway once. And that was scary. Then it came time for me to leave the military, leave California, and as much as I wanted to stay in California, that place is just too expensive if you've ever been there. So I decided I was going to return to Minnesota, and then there's no way my little car was going to make that trip, that 2,500-mile trip from California to Minnesota, let alone carry all my stuff, right, because it's not that big. And so I could just see I could be stranded in the middle of like a desert with buzzards flying over me. Wait, there's a story there, but that'll be a different story. That would be a different time. So I traded my sports car in for this, a 1996 Toyota Tacoma, right? Sports car to a truck. I had to transport all my stuff. It definitely could do that. So I thought, this truck will work. Now, I will have to say I had some good times in this truck, and I did grow to love. This isn't my truck, by the way, either. Similar to my truck. It looks almost identical. I grew to love the truck. I did. But it wasn't my sports car, right? It wasn't my fast little sports car. And so this is my picture of sadness. I lost a great love, my car. And sadness, you need to know, is an emotion. And we're going to talk about this emotion. And sadness is one of many emotions. And it's not a bad emotion, though. It's not bad to be sad. It's just being real. So here's the thing. We'll be talking about sadness, and we've been talking about these emotions, and we're not talking about whether feeling sad is right or wrong. The question is, it's basic, it's human level. Where will that emotion take us? And we've been having this road sign. Which direction are you going to allow your emotions to take you? It's not a bad emotion. It's just where you're going to let it take you can be determining how things work out. And so we said, hey, where will this sadness take you? So when I lost my car, I was sad, right? And so here's where it took me. It took me to bitterness because I missed my car. Anybody else been there? Miss something, you get bitter about it because you lost something that you had. And I'm just like, irrationally start saying things like, why would you even let me drive the car, Lord, if you're just going to take it from me? Why am I so bitter, God? Why would you let this happen to me, right? You start getting hopeless. I just started thinking, I'm just sitting here riding in my Tacoma, my truck, and I'm never going to like driving again. I'm never going to have a sports car again. I won't be able to afford it when I get out of college. I have all these college loans, and I'll probably get more mature and practical at some point, so I'm probably not going to buy one then. And now I'm going to be a pastor. I'm a pastor now, and you'd all judge me if I drove up in a Corvette or, Ferrari or something, right? So there's no way. And you start feeling lonely, right? And you start feeling that loneliness creep in. And I was like, when I drove the Corolla GTS, everybody wanted to ride, right? Everyone be in the car with you. And nobody's wanting to ride in the Tacoma with you. Plus, there's not that many seats there. So, no one's saying, let's go for a long drive in the truck. But, so, as we've been talking, and I want this to be as real as possible, we've been talking about lots of emotions. We've been talking about shame, and shame is dealing with the weight of your past, right? And last week we talked about anxiety. And anxiety is dealing with the what if of your future. But I just need you to know that today we're going to square in on the concept and this emotion of sadness. We're going to take a hard look at this, and sadness is the emotion of today's reality. And that there's this reality that I had something great, but I lost it. It may not be a car and a truck situation, maybe something else in your life. And I'm not sure it's ever going to come back. And you have sadness in it. So if you asked me, John, literally at the very beginning of all this, John, do you struggle with sadness? And is that something is that a thing for you? And I would say, like most men in the room, I'd say, I don't know that I struggle with sadness. I don't know that I'd call it that at least. I wouldn't call it sadness. But if I'm being real, there are these days I just don't feel great, right? You just don't feel great. I just sometimes inside there are days where things aren't good right now. Days when the emotions catch up to me and say, you know what? I don't know that I'm sad. I just thought I'd never be here. That I just never thought I'd be in this moment. I don't know if it's sad. So I kind of came up with a list. I used to drive a Corolla GTS, and and I had it, and it was great. And I just never thought I'd be here, where my Corolla GTS was gone. And I found myself the other day in our minivan, and the words came out of my mouth. Remember, I had a sports car. I said, "Man, this thing handles pretty well. I like this minivan. It's comfortable." That's sad, right? How did we get here? I I don't know about the rest of you, I used to be able to eat about anything I wanted. And anybody, I like look at bread now. I just look at bread or something like pasta, and I gain 5 pounds, and it's always just in the wrong spot. And like, I don't get to choose where it goes anymore. It just goes. You know, I never thought I'd hear my kids say, "Dad, why are you so squishy?" You know, I never thought I'd be in that moment, but I've been there. And I used to have this ideal that I don't know if you had this ideal, but of parenting, right? That, okay, when I'm a parent, I'm never going to lose my mind. I'm never going to raise my voice. I never thought I'd be in that place where I regularly lose my mind with my kids. And that's real, right? You know, I used to think, I'm an idealistic person. I used to think, you know, my wife and I, we're going to have this incredible relationship. And there's going to be rich relationships with friends and stuff. And we're going to have this rich relationship with them. And it's going to be great and good. And we're going to be honest. And we'll give grace. And we're just going to live life with these people, our friends. And if I'm being honest, we had these moments in our lives where we never thought we'd be there. There were these relationships that we were close with. And then they moved away. Like, there's too many to count that we've had move away. They went south, they went north, went every direction. People we shared the birth of children with and the loss of loved ones with. And no matter what we could do, we just couldn't save the relationship because distance just is a challenge. And we see them here and there, but that close, intimate relationship isn't there. And all of a sudden we start feeling, okay, we're not bitter people. We just start feeling a little bit bitter, though, right, in those situations. Bitter about them, bitter about the circumstances we're in. We start feeling just this hopelessness come into our lives, just saying, you know, maybe we shouldn't put ourselves out there like that because we'll just lose our friends. Do we really want to go through that again? We started feeling lonely. We started recognizing that, you know what, if this is what you give and then that's what you get, maybe we're best on our own. But then you feel the weight of being alone. You know, I used to think that pregnancy was the best season in life ever. But 9 years ago when we had a miscarriage, my wife had a miscarriage, I've never felt that level of sadness in my life. And I know that everybody processes it different. But it still hits me more than I want to say. And when we got pregnant after that with Aubrey, I was afraid. I didn't show it, but I was fearful of losing again. And then all the complications we had with Aubrey, it really hit me hard. And you know, if anybody would have told me, John, are you sad? Do you deal with sadness? No. Do you deal with loneliness? No. But if I'm honest, do I walk into rooms on a regular occasion and sometimes feel like nobody knows what's going on with me? Nobody? No, they don't. They don't know. And I'm not sure if anyone does. Would they even notice? And right in the middle of the crowd, I'm feeling more alone than I ever thought I was capable of. So I would say that I struggle with sadness. Maybe. Would I say I struggle with loneliness? Would I say I struggle with hopelessness? I don't think I'd say that. But if you caught me in the honest moment and you said, John, this is the reality of what you've lost, does that reality just how lonely you can feel sometimes, and sometimes you feel trapped and you feel like you can never really change things going on around you? Yeah, maybe. And I think God would lean in those moments. And we're going to talk about this. He said, oh, by the way, John, that's called sadness. It's called what you're wrapping your mind around, what to do with loss. And when people, and you've been in the same place. Some of you used to have great friends, and it's almost worse that you tasted it, right? That you had these great friends and you lost it. You had great friendships and they were close. It was somebody that you loved, it was a rich relationship that you had, and now it's gone. And it would be truer to say that you have a lot of people around you and to say that there are a lot of people that know you. There are some of you in this room who would say, you know what? I used to have a great family. You had a great family and a great relationship with your parents and with your kids and with your siblings. And now fast forward, and the reality is it's all blown up. And there is bitterness, and there's hopelessness, and there's loneliness even in your family. You've had to watch them become who they become and make the decisions that they've made. And I just need you to know that it's okay to be sad about that. It's okay. In fact, the reality is that you had it in your hands, and it was great. It was an ideal marriage. It was ideal parenting. It was friendships that were rich and a job that you always dreamed about. You tasted an incredible season of life. It was amazing. You had a deep love. You held it in your hands, and now it's gone. And it's just gone, and you're not sure if it's ever going to come back. It's probably not going to work out the way you thought. And I don't care who you are, I know we all process this different. This is all processed differently, but a basic human emotion that God gave us in these moments of loss, let's just be real, is sadness. God gave it to us. Now, my favorite guy in the Old Testament is David. There's nobody more human and no one more aware of his emotions than David. And as a matter of fact, in 1 Samuel 13:14, when God goes on to describe the kind of guy that he wants to lead his people, he describes David. And he says, the Lord has sought out a man after his own heart. Now, the heart in this Hebrew word means literally the seat place of emotion and passion. So God is looking for someone to lead his people, and he's looking for someone that's going to reset the table on the situation with Israel. And so he wants to grab someone that holds in their chest this ability to feel, this ability to emote, this person that's not going to turn it off, but he's going to reflect the emotions of God to the Israelites. And so here's what happens. You know, David did what most of us don't. He plugged into his emotions. A lot of us like to exclude our emotions and keep them out. But David, he plugged into it. He wasn't afraid of his emotions. He wrote 73 of 150 Psalms, and he never held back when he's writing these. One of my favorite things about David was he was not just real, he was almost frighteningly real, if you read about him. Like, he would say things like, oh, brother, I don't think you can, like, things he'd say, I don't think you can say that, David. Like, I don't think you can say that about God. I don't think you can say that about these people. I don't know if you should be saying that about yourself. That's too vulnerable. That's too real. That's too close. Those are the things we hold close to us that we don't let out. But David has this ability to cut right through the soft seating and put together outfits, and he just knows how to get to the heart and how to be real with himself and with God. I'm telling you, you can call him messed up, you can call him over-emotional, but I think God would say, I'm just going to call him human. And so a few people give him more early on. There's been a few people who were given more early on than David, right? Very few people were given so much. I mean, right from the gates, he had one of the greatest prophets of the time come to his house and anoint him a king. And in front of every single one of his brothers, who were all older. Isn't that a little brother's dream, right? He brings David in to talk to David in front of his older brothers and about how incredible he is and about how God sees you and how he's going to use you and he has plans for you and he's got this palace in your future. And if you watch David's early life, you'd say everything supports that. Like right out of the gates, he goes off and kills a bear. Who does that? Joe? I don't want to hear. You know, any bears? No. He goes out and kills a lion. Who does that? He goes out and kills a giant. He becomes one of the best military leaders that the nation has ever seen. As a matter of fact, he steps into one of the best friendships he'll ever have. It's a guy named Jonathan, who just happens to be the son of the king. And not only does he walk into this rich relationship, but then the king says, hey, by the way, let me give you my daughter's hand in marriage. So he's going to marry a princess. This is going great. I'm telling you, it doesn't get much better than that early on in David's life. And then, well, it came crashing down. The king that once honored him was jealous and was jealously trying to kill him. His relationship that he never thought would end were completely cut off. Literally, his wife, the king's daughter, was taken from him, by the king, and given to another man. And in Psalm 142, and that's where we're going to unpack sadness today, is in Psalm 142. He just has this real, very honest conversation in one of the lowest moments of his life, in which literally he wrote in a cave. Isn't that interesting? I mean, literally, I'm not sure you could paint a better picture of sadness than living in a cave. So here's David right in the middle. He had influence. He had it in his hand. It was gone. He had this ability where every single man just wanted to be him. Now every man feels sorry for him. Everybody knew about him. He now lives in infamy. Everybody is hunting him. He had friends, they're gone. Wife, gone. Safety, gone. Affluence, gone. There is no place in David's story that is further from the dream of being king than in this moment of being in the cave. And I guarantee you, David never thought he'd be there. David never could imagine that he'd ever be in a cave. There's no better picture of having it and then losing it all. And I think it's interesting because the cave is where sadness takes us all. So for him, this is kind of like us. We end up not just in the cave, but we end up in the cave of bitterness. Right? I mean, listen to his language here in this psalm. Psalm 142, 1 through 2, he says, he goes, I cry aloud to the Lord. I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out before him what? My complaint. Like, I'm before him, I tell him all my troubles. And it's just this language that comes in this cave. This language of, why would you? I thought that you would, God, why in the world would you let this happen to me? Have you ever been in that cave? Like, why would you let cancer into my life? Why would you let this happen to me? Why would you let me struggle for so long with this? Why would you take this relationship away from me? I mean, I thought we were headed for a palace, Lord. I thought you and I was going to have these great relationships, and I thought there wasn't going to be any challenges. Things were going so smooth. I thought I'd never end up in this cave. That's part of the reason I came to you. I've got some complaints, God, because I'm not in a good spot right now. Maybe it leads you to the cave of hopelessness. He was there too. And this is what he would say. And I love the way he said it in in verse 3, he said, man, I am overwhelmed. Everybody else not know what to do when you're in a cave? That's David. I don't know what to do. But guess what? It's not that I don't know what to do. I don't know how to respond, and I don't know how to act. I also know that my enemies have set traps for me, meaning even if I get out of this, ever felt like that? Even if I get out of this right now, I guarantee you that I'd be in the exact same spot again. Even if I got out of this loneliness, I'll be right back in it. So the language of the cave of hopelessness would just say, I'm never going to. I'm never going to get past this. I'm never going to get over this. I'm never going to feel like my future is better than it was before. It's never going to happen again. Or maybe you end up in the cave of loneliness. Maybe that's where sadness takes you. And he certainly was there too. In verse 4, he says, look and see, there is, watch him say this in a whole bunch of times. Watch him. He says, there is what? No one at my right hand. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge, no safe place. No one cares for my life. And that's what the cave says. There is no one. There is no one, nobody that really knows you. There's nobody that cares about you. Nobody that understands what you've lost. No one that would stick up for you. Nobody that would even notice today that you're in a bad spot. And so you might as well just figure it out. You might as well just kind of put it together yourself. Because David, I just got to be honest, David was in this cave, right? He was in this cave. And none of us like living in a cave. Like no one says, it's why we don't even want to say that we're sad, right? We don't want to say we're sad because we don't want to be in that cave of sadness, wherever it takes us. It's one of the reasons why I hate sad movies. I hate them. My wife sometimes likes sad movies. She's like, let's go watch this movie, and we're just going to cry, right? I can see that. And I'm like, why? Why would I do that? Why would I pay to go cry for sad movies? Like, why are we doing this? And some of you don't avoid sad movies, but you avoid sad people. And you're like, you know what? I just don't want to be around someone that's sad. You know, That seems mean, but you just don't want someone around you that will ask hard questions. You don't want people that will make you reflect on things in your own life. You don't want people that will make you think about what you've lost. So somehow we can be in the right in the middle of our cave, and some of you, if I'm being honest, you are right in the middle of your cave right now. Somehow we just decide to, maybe if we just pretend we're not in it, it will go away. So fellas, I'm just going to talk to you for a second. So your cave looks like this, right? You say, you know what? I don't really have the relationship with my wife that I long for. What I really thought would happen. And so you know what I'm going to do? I won't say it out loud, but I am sad about it. You know, I don't really have a relationship with my kids, and I thought I was going to have, and I really wanted it. I thought I was going to have it, but it's not there. And you know what? I'm not really happy about the job I'm in. This job it's not my dream job I'm living in, and so what I'm going to do, I'm right in the middle of my cave. I'm sitting there in my cave of loneliness. So what do? I splash a little paint up on the walls, and I put a TV up on the wall. I might put a pool table in the middle of it. You know what that becomes? My man cave, right? And here's the reality, man. Like, when you come into this room, only positive things are going to happen in this man cave. You're going to talk about your feelings? No. You're going back to the back deck. See ya. You're only going to put trophies that remind us of when our sports teams actually win. Okay, well, that might be a little lacking right now. But, okay, we're getting real. We don't do sad things, because somehow it can be, if we can pretend just long enough, if we can just dress it up and make it look good, maybe the bitterness and the loneliness and the hopelessness, it won't set in, right? That's what we think. Now, ladies, I so badly wanted to give you a free pass on this too, but the reality is, men are not the only ones trying to dress up their caves. Yours is just called the she shed. I copyrighted that one, so you can't use it. Or at least, let's be honest, you get the rest of the house, right? Men get the man cave, women get the rest of the house. But you and I know that it doesn't matter how much shiplap you put up, or how many tiny candles that are all boutique, or how many small little lamps that are replicating at a rapid rate around your house. No matter how much you try to warm up that home, you know you feel like you're in a cave. And you're bitter. And it's hard for you to be positive right now. You're starting to wonder where all those relationships that you used to have, but they're not there anymore. And sometimes something crosses your mind that says, man, I'm not sure this is going to change. And what I love about David is he doesn't avoid his cave, but he doesn't make his home in the cave. Right there in the middle of one of David's darkest moments, I can almost picture it. David gets down on his knees and he recognizes something that you and I need to recognize. I don't know when it hit him, but at some point he just recognized, God is not surprised I'm in this cave. Not only does he know that I'm in this cave, but I'm not alone in this cave. And I really believe what made David different was David found God's presence in the cave. Amen. You just hear his language in verse 5 through 7. He says, Lord, I cry to you. And that's real. Some of us have never gotten down on our knees and just said that's what's real, and said what's been lost, and say it before him, and say it honestly. I cry to you, Lord. I say, you are my refuge. If it's not you, I don't know who. I don't know any other safe place to go right now. And you are my portion. I have nothing left to give. As a matter of fact, whatever I have is going to have to come from you in the land of the living. And he continues on, and he just says, listen to my cry, for I am in desperate need. Maybe I couldn't put my finger on it, but if I'm honest with myself, I'm not in a good spot. I need someone to rescue me from those who pursue me, for they are too strong for me. Those feelings of bitterness, they're getting too strong. Those feelings of hopelessness, they're getting too strong. Those feelings of loneliness, I don't know how to put them out anymore, Father. And I've got to have you in the cave. And I know you haven't left me here alone. And he says, just in verse 7, he says, set me free. Because, Lord, this is a prison right now. This cave that I can get back to praising your name. I want to be free. And I think David found what so many of us miss. And that is that God's power and his peace and his kindness and his voice and his answer to not our Sunday school blessing box questions, but the real ones that we have in our life, in our reality. God's presence is never more available to us than when we are in our cave, in our raw, real, undistracted moments where we simply are who we are and we feel what we feel. And I really believe this, cave moments, we run from them. We run from our cave moments, right? We don't want to be there. But if we recognize that, we are never more honest and God's presence is never more available than in the cave, then it might shift our perspective about the caves. David didn't just find God's presence in the cave. David found rich relationships in the cave. I think we can talk about the cave without seeing it, because David would spend roughly a decade on the run from King Saul trying to kill him. He went from, and this is all natural caves here, not just one cave, he went from cave to cave to cave for about a decade. And I feel like he knew every cave in every hillside of that region. But in that moment, while he battled feeling lonely, here's the reality. He might have felt lonely, but history would tell you that he was never alone. 1 Samuel 22, 1 through 2 says this: David left Gath and escaped to the cave at Adullam. That's where he's writing this now, the psalm. When his brothers and his father's household heard about it, it says, they went down to him. They responded to him there in the cave. All those who were in distress or in debt or discontented gathered around him. And it just continues to say, he became their commander. About 400 men, not counting women, were there with him in that cave. And I just need to say this. David wasn't lonely because no one else wasn't around. David was lonely because he wasn't walking in the depths of relationships he longed for. And that's us, right? Loneliness is not the absence of faces. It's the absence of intimacy. It's the absence of real. It's the absence of being known. It's the absence of something that you can only find if you really think about it. I think that what David found, and I think that what I have found, I think that you can only find that kind of intimacy in real relationships. And there's a guy by the name of Khalil Gibran, I think I said it right, and he's this kind of quirky painter, and don't Google him, but he had this great quote that I like. He says, the deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Think about that. How do you feel joy without knowing sorrow? And I want to encourage you. Something beautiful is happening in these cave moments. So I just want to put these together because this blows my mind, because you're sitting here reading Psalm 142, and if I'm being honest as I'm digging through this, it's really hard for me to get too wrapped up in this, because here's the reality. I'm sitting here and I'm hearing David pour out his heart. I'm hearing him talk about the impossible, the impossibility. I'm hearing him talk about being alone. But here's what I know. I know that all David can see in this moment is this cave he's in. But we know the end of the story, right? Like, there's a palace coming in David's future. I know that he's stuck in the cave and he feels like there's no one there. But I know if you fast forward the story, just in a few years down the road, he's going to find himself in the exact same cave with 3 of his closest friends that he'd never had in his life. Until then, with a rich relationship with the Father, with God. Those 3 friends are going to find out something that he didn't say it out loud. They were going to respond to his heart. They're going to risk their lives for him. And he's going to be literally standing in the best moment he's ever had in a couple of years. And here's what I know about David. David could only see the walls of his cave, but God saw the palace in his future. God saw the victory that was down the road. Not just the cave David was in. And sometimes I don't know who's in the cave today, but sometimes as we walk through life together, I think that we have to remind each other in our cave moments that there's a game changer for us. See, a lot of us can only see these walls in our caves, and that's real. The cave is real, but there's this little thing called a cross. And Jesus' life was laid down for us. They took him down. They wrapped him in clothes. They had a funeral procession. They literally walked him into a fresh-cut cave. And for 3 days, there has never been a cave more dark, more sad. But then y'all know the story, right? The rest of the story is that the cave of defeat, the cave of sadness, became a cave of what? The cave of victory. And then I'm just here to remind you as a brother, because some of you are in a cave right now. Some of you didn't even know it until you walked in this door that you're in a cave. And you've been dressing it up. You've been avoiding it. You've been trying to run from it. And I'm just here to tell you, I'm here to remind you, some of you, that you are walking in bitterness. I'm here to remind you that some of you are walking in hopelessness. I'm here to remind you, some of you, that you are walking in loneliness that you don't tell anybody about. You don't want to tell anybody about your loneliness. That same power that resurrected the Son of God from that cave took life and put it in a dead body and brought it out in life so that you and I could have intimacy with the Father in heaven. Amen. That same power that rolled the stone away is available for you in your cave. Amen. And he loves you and he wants to meet you. And I just want to be honest, victory does not mean that you're going to get your old life and your old friends back. But victory does mean that if you will trust him, if you allow him to meet you in your cave, if you allow other people to meet you in your cave, that the promise is with him that there is victory coming. That there is going to be relationships in your future that might even be better than the past. He's not going to leave you where you are. That's not who he is. Victory from you may not look like your body being healed here. He can do it, but I'm telling you, it may not look like that here. But victory can look like the fact that right now, whether you're hurt, whether you ache, you could actually spend the rest of your life leveraging this old, nasty body that's broken and isn't exactly what you think, for the glory, for the hope, for the kingdom, to allow people to walk in freedom, to free prisoners from their cave. He could use your body, your broken body, just as it is, to do that. He could use you to free people from their caves. And by the way, you do it long enough, and then we're going to see him face to face. And you're going to get a new body, even if this one's broken. For some of you, victory doesn't mean this. It doesn't mean that I'm going to get my child back. It doesn't mean that death is defeated here. It doesn't mean that there's a day. It does mean that there is a day coming, though, when I will see them face to face. I'm not happy because I've never been in a cave. I'm happy because I met Jesus in the cave. Amen. I have a rich relationship today because I allowed people into my cave and I stepped into other people's caves. And so here's what I want you to do. Just as your brother in Christ, right now in your room, if you don't mind closing your eyes for a second. And I just want to pray for you. And I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit bold here while you have your eyes closed. I just want you, because I want to be specific. If you are right now, because of a loss in your life or a dream or an ideal or a relationship, if you're dealing with bitterness, if you're dealing with hopelessness, or if you're dealing with loneliness, I just want you to raise your hand right now, and I'm going to pray for you. Father, I just pray, Father, for your power and your grace, and I pray that you will meet your sons and daughters in their caves right now, Lord, those that are lonely. Father, I pray that we would be allowed to experience a touch of your power and experience your grace. You're right there with them, even when they're still in the cave. Father, I pray that you would lead them, even if it scares them, into rich relationships, to get connected, to put themselves back out into a place where they can be known and where they can know others. But Father, I pray that you would meet them in their bitterness, meet them in their hopelessness, remind them who you are, meet them in their loneliness that makes them feel like they're the only ones and no one knows. Let it start with you. You know them and you love them, and it's impossible. And the impossible is always possible with you, Lord. So just pray for those living only being able to see their cave walls. Father, allow them to see the victory that you bring to them in their future. We pray that in Jesus' name.